And for the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. And that's just a sampling. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. For laptops, mobile phones, and tablets, download the Roku app. National Streaming Sports, live and on demand, sports talk for America.
Football season is here, and SeatGeek is my go-to for buying tickets. Now, with SeatGeek, every single ticket is backed with their buyer guarantee. We've all had plans change, and when you can't make it to the big game, SeatGeek has you covered. They're the only ticketer that allows you to return your tickets ahead of the event for credit with SeatGeek swaps. So when things come up, I know that my tickets won't go to waste. So what are you waiting for? Download the SeatGeek app to maximize your possibilities.
We're getting there, Bobby. We're getting there.
How are you today?
I didn't have a year scheduled today. We'll pick that up again next week. I think that we're at 1983, if I'm not mistaken. So
we are. So we'll go to 84 season next.
Right. We'll do 84 next week as the Giants start to improve their team under Bill Parcells. So that will be a fun thing to do. We do have a Giants trivia question, Bobby. And I know you love these questions.
I do.
Yeah, I know you do. So we're gonna ask the question for you and see how it works out. Let's see. All right. So, which quarterback in Giants history has the most career touchdowns? So, I mean, we're going all the way back over Giants history. So take that in consideration. But who, as the New York Giants, has the most career touchdowns in the history of the Giants? So we'll get back to that at the end of the show. We talked about this guy before. It wasn't a spotlight, but we're spotlighting him today. And cornerback Emlyn, I think I'm saying it right. Or is it Emlyn? Emlyn with an N, Tunnel. 72 interceptions in his career, Bob. And of course I spelled that wrong too, because if you're going to screw up the whole thing. You know what I mean? Don't just screw up a little bit.
Yeah, but his name's kind of right, except
a Carrar. So anyway, this guy was a heck of a cornerback for the Giants, and I think you did a little bit of study on him. So why don't you tell the viewers about this guy?
Well, he's got a very unique background, and I'm going to start off by saying something that John Mara said when he was actually at his funeral, and he never knew that this giant great was actually in the Coast Guard during World War II. So he never really. This was a kind of person that Emlyn was. He's not going to talk about things from the past to make himself look better. He was a very I wouldn't say shy man, but he kept a lot of things to himself. Very soft-spoken, a great athlete. Played football, basketball, baseball. So he played all three sports. But let's go back to his Coast Guard type of this is kind of where I picked up a little bit of his story from. So he's prior to World War II, when I guess maybe it was World War II, started in 41. He was actually playing football and he broke his neck. So he hurt his neck so bad, he wanted to join the Army or the Navy in World War II, but they wouldn't let him because of the injury. So he ended up settling for the Coast Guard, which was a great thing. And we'll get to some of his accomplishments after he retired to the Coast Guard. Certainly, showered him with some really nice things that they did for him after his career was over. But he's in the Coast Guard, and he does two things that I think are, not only heroic, but, it kind of sets the tone of really the type of person he really was. A Japanese dive bomber drops a torpedo, hits the ship, and one of the machinists actually was around some flammable material on the ship, and he becomes on fire. So Tunnel then grabs the guy, pats out the fire with his hands, and saves his life.
Yeah.
And he's rewarded some citation for that. They were off, this was when they were off the coast of New Guinea during World War II. They were up in the North Atlantic, and the water was 32 degrees. And they're throwing around a football on one of the ships, just having some fun. One of the sailors falls overboard in 32 degrees. And this was a kind of unique thing that I learned about him. He's in the Coast Guard, but he's not a good swimmer. Anyways, he jumps in the water, not a good swimmer, ends up swimming and saving this guy's life. So he saved two American lives while he was serving his country. And John Mara never knew about any of that until he passed away. So he comes back home. He goes to Iowa State. At Iowa State, he's a quarterback and a running back. And he's actually, so he plays both positions at a very high level. His senior year, though, there was some complications with some grades. So with $1.50 in his pocket, he hitchhikes to New York to meet with, is it Jack Mara? The old Mara, is it Jack? Am I saying it
Wellington?
right?
Wellington?
No, it wasn't Wellington he met with. He met with another Mara.
I'm not sure.
It wasn't Wellington. Who was Wellington's brother?
I know Wellington and John. That's the only two I know.
It was John, then. It wasn't Jack. It was John. So he meets with John Mara. Senior.
Right.
So he meets. So he meets, and they decide to sign this guy. He wasn't drafted. He's foregoing his senior year of college, and they make him into a safety. And that's kind of where you picked we were talking about him last week, because he was actually our one of our trivia right. Answers that I did not know. So I had to learn a little bit more about him. So he becomes a safety, and just to kind of I couldn't remember everything. He has 79 career interceptions. 72 career interceptions. At the time, was the most in NFL history. He's the first African-American player to sign with the New York Giants.
Yeah.
He's the first African-American player, defensive player, to go to the Hall of Fame in 1967. Or was it 66? One of those two. He holds records that were in some cases were multiple decade old records that have since been broken. But you're talking about a guy who was always on the All-Pro ballots. He was always in the Pro Bowls. I think he played in 8 of them. Just an all-around great Giant. And what they say about him, he was offense. He made defense into offense. It was offense into defense, and that was kind of the name that the players in the league gave him. And the press gave him, because he was so good at what he did and when it came to intercepting a ball and really taking it back to the house. So he had a hell of a career. When he was done with his playing career, he then becomes a defensive back coach for the New York Giants, and he actually was with the Giants until the early 70s. So he coached for 10 years after he retired from the Giants.
So career Giant for sure.
Career Giant. Well, and actually, no, he goes to Green Bay. Okay. Vince Lombardi becomes the Green Bay Packers coach.
Brought him with him. Gotcha.
He buys out the contract. And here's the weird thing about it. He goes there and he doesn't start for Green Bay. As a matter of fact, he plays very sparingly. He only plays goal line defense. When the teams got in with between the 25, the 20, and the 15-yard line, they put him in because he was so smart. And so he put everybody in the right position to help stop the touchdown from happening. But he didn't start for Green Bay. He played there for 3 years, but he was never a starter. He did pick up another championship ring with the Green Bay Packers, too.
How you doing? That's Sonia. That's Sonia, the one I told you about. Yes. Prim and Proper Sports. And thank you for sharing, Sonia. We appreciate that. We love that. So, you as cornerbacks go, right? We talk a lot about our safeties go even. I mean, safety used to be one of the primary positions. Cornerback has become maybe more of the position because they're matched up against wide receivers, right? But if you go back, you look, the safeties were the ones that ran the defensive backfields. He had to be smart football-wise. He had to have a high football IQ and a lot of speed. And that's what the safeties did. They kind of laid back, read the quarterback's eyes, and took off with the ball. Great player, I'm glad, I found him when we were looking through, for the trivia question, because, otherwise I never heard of him before. So, and, me and you both know a lot about the Giants, but this guy just popped out of nowhere, especially being, Hall of Famer, that you would think,
right.
There would be more to it. So anyway, great job on that, Bobby. So the head coach we're going to be talking about is Earl. You call him Potty? Pottinger?
I'm going to call him by his nickname. That was Potty. That's what.
Okay, Potty sounds good to me.
That's what. Because I don't want to pronounce his last name and kill it, but it looked like it would be Pottinger. Pottinger. Right. Yes, we do need a good quarterback. You're 110% correct, and hopefully we'll find one soon. And we're going to talk about the top 10 the top quarterbacks in the draft in a little while. But we definitely need a quarterback, no doubt about it.
That's for sure.
It's scary bad when it comes to thinking about, and I have my thoughts on that too, and who we should take and who we might take. And Pottinger. Yes. I think there's an E in there too. E-I-G-E. I could be wrong. E-I-G-E-R. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, something like that.
Anyways.
Pottinger. Yes.
Potty.
There you go. Potty's easy.
Just another typical, and we were talking about this before we came on the air, typical player type coach of that era. You're talking about the early 1900s. Again, another athlete who played three sports. He played, football, basketball, baseball. He was a player coach. He coached basketball. He was drafted by teams in Major League Baseball. I know the Yankees were eyeing him back in the 19 right when Babe Ruth came there. When did Babe Ruth get to the Yankees? 1919?
1919 sounds right.
So in 1919, the Yankees come calling on Potty to come play for them, and they actually had a contract ready for him. And then they worked out a deal with the Red Sox for some guy named Babe Ruth.
Yeah,
and Yeah, they pulled the contract away from Potty, so he never got to go play for the Yankees. He did play. He did play ball up in Worcester, Massachusetts. And there was like we talked about it too. They were kind of club type of teams back then, and when professional football was not as you know it today. It was more clubs, and the clubs played each other.
Right. And they sponsored the team. They sponsored the teams and the uniforms.
Yeah, exactly. Almost like a little league team now. You see, Joe's Bakery on the back of the jerseys.
Exactly.
It was kind of like that. That's how
I think the Packers. I think the Packers had a cheese factory.
It's either that or they had some brewery type of thing going.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Yeah. That was Minnesota. I think they were Scotland back then, Bob. So anyway. I mean, listen, back then, as you said, all the great George Halas, Maras, they all played the game too. They weren't just a coach, and some were GMs and some were owners too. I mean, they had all three hats. So at that time, that's what it was. And I know Potty only coached for 1 year. He had a 15-8 record, of course, championship also. So percentage-wise, he's up there a little ahead of Parcells, right? He's got a little bit better than a 16-10 percentage. So that was our next coach in the history of the Giants. And of course, we got a lot more coming at you, folks. So let's get to the quarterbacks. This is what I'm really interested in.
Okay.
And I think, Bob, I was hoping that the Giants would go get Travis Hunter, go down, pick up a quarterback maybe in the second, third, fourth, fifth round. I would have loved that to happen. I don't think now, after all I'm reading, that that's what's going to happen. I think that Brian DeBall, because he's under so much heat, is going to make not only a decision for the team, but for his career to get a rookie quarterback. This will give him and the GM, you said 3 years, maybe 1, 2, 3, 3 years.
Well, at least 2 years. It'll give him 2 years. I think they'll extend their – so you're not going to be – at the end of the season, the end of next season, now let's just say they – and I've seen this on some draft boards already. Let's just say they go and they take Milroe. Let's just say they do with the third overall pick. I would prefer to go Hunter, but let's just say, for the sake of argument, the Giants choose Milroe. Here's just a quick blip on Milroe, so Raw Tools jumps off the tape with Milroe. A nuclear arm paired with explosive athleticism that threatens defenses on every snap. I mean, you read some of these things and you say to yourself, wow. Well, why wouldn't we want to trade? I mean, why wouldn't we want to draft someone with that type of raw athleticism who can be like and I'm not going to try to say he's like Jalen Daniels, but Jalen Daniels can run, he can pass. They're almost saying like that this is where they might go. Now, right. I agree. We should take Hunter if I was picking. And even if Sanders was available, how about that? Let's say Sanders is available. Let's say Hunter goes one. Let's say Cam Ward goes 1 and Hunter goes 2 and Sanders is sitting there. Do you take Sanders?
I think they will.
I think they will too.
I think it's for their career. You see what Eberflus did, right? Eberflus, he's a defensive coach. And, he went and got Caleb Williams. And that gave him an extra year. Yeah. Right? I mean, that gave him at least an extra year. And if they were better than 4 wins, he would still be there right now. If they were
I'm noticing here that, that Milroe is her pick or Ward. What if Milroe is a bomb? And he's let's say they play him and he's terrible. He's Bryce Young terrible. What did the
Woo!
Giants do?
That's her team, and that's her quarterback. Oh my God, Bobby!
Now I'm not saying Bryce is terrible now, but he was terrible at the beginning of the year when they stopped him. Yes. So don't get mad at me now.
Yeah, listen, I was going to make a funny and say trade him for Bryce Young, but
they're never going to do that now because no. he came on so strong at the end of the season that right. I think he has a future where he is now. So I don't see them trading him. I don't see him leaving. If that makes, are we friends now? Sorry.
It's funny you picked this. I mean, you didn't even know that. That's the funny part. And you said,
well, when I say Bryce Young bad, I mean, he started off pretty terrible.
Yeah, he did.
I mean, he did.
Sonia will even admit that. So,
I mean, as we see, and sometimes a player needs to sit. Sometimes, but some players, if they're, and I don't know his makeup, I don't know a lot about the young man, but some players can take the medicine and sit, and some players can't. Yeah, and obviously he could. So he's mature. He's probably way mature above his years because it takes a lot of maturity. See, I'm being nice now.
Yes. So let's go through some of the other ones that are there.
All right. Yeah, I mean,
let me give you a few. All right, Dylan Gabriel.
Shoot.
Dylan Gabriel was the Oregon quarterback. Replaces Bo Nix. He goes in there. They lose to Ohio State by 2 points. He's very quick. He's a lefty. He's very quick with his reads. Very quick, getting rid of the ball. But he's kind of small. Which there are quarterbacks out there that are kind of small. So he's a consideration that I think will go off the board. Will Howard for Ohio State had a great playoff run. He's a young guy, and I think that he might be not a project. I think maybe he's got to wait a year or two, and I think he'll be okay.
Right.
We got we got Jason Dart, we got Ewers. Both quarterbacks are decent quarterbacks. Are any of these guys franchise quarterbacks? I don't know. I don't think so, Bobby.
I mean, maybe can one of them be Brock Purdy? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to put a Tom Brady label on any of these guys. I'm glad we're friends. Thank you. I'm not going to put that type of pressure on them. But here's the grades. We'll go from there. So the best graded, and this is grades that came out at the end of the season. These are all combine grades. So these grades will change. Sanders is graded number 1 at 90.5. Ward is right behind him at 89.7. And Milroe is 86.2. So we talked about those three players. So those are your three top graded players coming out. You're right about Dylan Gabriel. He's 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. So sounds like Drew Brees. I mean, as far as his weight, his height. Yeah. I mean, he projects as a high ceiling quarterback, as a spot starter potential. Is that who you want to draft? A spot starter potential.
Yeah.
I mean, so I don't see maybe West Coast type of maybe quarterback for him because of his height and moving the pocket around. Yeah, they probably can. I just happened to look down at that. That's awesome. Nothing, and I'm talking about Mac. Nothing jumps out at me of any of these quarterbacks. I mean, look at Jackson Dart. I've heard him talked about maybe going to the Giants. I mean, he's the ninth rated quarterback. And I mean, I understand they're all bunched together right now going into the combine.
Right.
Is he a third? Is he the third overall pick? It's the Giants. The Giants are really in a tough situation going into this draft. Looking at this group of guys, none of them are you can hang your hat on them. They're going to be like the quarterbacks last year that came out. And the Giants didn't choose one of those 6 quarterbacks last year.
Yeah, and they had opportunity. They had an
opportunity. They did, and they had an opportunity to choose a few of them, and they chose not to.
Yes.
These guys coming out now, you're talking, let's say they all came out last year. They're second, third, fourth round picks. Yes. And there's some were second, third, fourth round picks this year, anyways.
Yes. And I agree with that. I mean, Sonia brings up, we talked about this, having a veteran quarterback. I don't know about Wilson, but we've talked about Justin Fields. We've talked about some other quarterbacks. You got Sam Darnold out there. You got a few quarterbacks. Gardner Minshew was out there. I mean, these are bridge quarterbacks that could play pretty well. But I mean, what does that do? For these young quarterbacks to be successful, you mentioned Brock Purdy, they have to go to a great situation, which Brock Purdy did. He went to San Francisco 49ers, great defense, good running game, blah, blah, blah. Most of the times when you're picked near the top, you don't go to a great situation, right? Wow. So I don't know. I think it's going to be interesting, but Bobby, I really think the Giants are going to – I think they're going to pick a quarterback, and I'm not happy about this. I'm not.
You think if Milrose there, they'll take him?
I think they'll take pretty much – I mean Ewers had some good games. Texas, they had a big program. Maybe Quentin Ewers. I don't know. I
mean, people are saying Milrose should stay back. He should stay in college. And a decent vet will do as a bridge quarterback. They're going to have to find someone here. I mean, none of these guys after Saunders and after Ward, I don't think any of these guys are starting. They're not starting quarterbacks. Milrose, they said he should go back to college and for another year.
We talked about this. We talked about the Syracuse quarterback. I talked to Keith Angle about him, and like I said, Keith Angle was like, "Well, he did have a good year, blah blah." Of course, Syracuse isn't playing the top of the line teams, but that really doesn't matter, right? I mean,
right.
Drew Brees played for Purdue. I mean, he wasn't playing against SEC either. But I would love to see. I think Donovan McNabb was the last quarterback that was really successful that came out of Syracuse, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
I would love to see you give this kid a shot. If you're gonna do it, I mean, if Dable is that great an offensive coordinator, I mean, he should be able to pretty much do this with any quarterback, which I know he won't. But I mean
he's got good size. He's 6'4", 230, 220 pounds. Yeah. So I mean, he's got good size. He's not going to run the ball though. He's going to be more of a pocket passer. He's not going to beat you with his legs,
right?
Like maybe Milroe can do as he assimilates to the NFL. He'll need, if the Giants did, let's say they took Hunter, maybe they take a stab on him. He's the 5th rated quarterback again going into the pre-combine. Decent grade, 83.4. Milroe's 86, so he's right kind of close to Milroe as far as the grade goes. He'll need a good offensive line. The Giants' offensive line is better, and I think it's going to be better next year. I think that they need, and I don't know what they're going to do at the tackle. And I don't know. We might look maybe at the draft for another offensive tackle. Maybe sign a guard, and he doesn't have to be a starter, but he has to be a reliable backup. So we need to build a bench on the offensive line for injuries.
Are we done with?
He'll need a good line. I'm sorry.
Are we done with Evan Neal yet? Can we just say that's over? Can we just move on from him?
Please? Do you kick him inside the guard? Do you move him in guard? Do you move Neal into? I mean, that's been tossed around a lot.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know he can't handle the tackle position. That's for sure. Well, he's always injured too. So I mean, the guy's been injured 2 out of the 4 years we've had him.
Thomas is always injured too.
No, Thomas got hurt last year.
The year before.
Yeah. So, Almighty Fitness, what's good with you? So there you go. So, yeah, he says he'd move Neil to guard. All right. Well,
I mean, if you're going to salvage him, he has his 5th-year options up this year. Do you pick it up?
It's a good question. Let's see how he performs.
I mean, they'll have to pick it up this year before going into next
year.
Yeah,
I'm saying how he performs this year.
I mean that's kind of a tough decision. I mean, the Giants should have picked up an option with Jones. They didn't.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Becton is having a good year with the Eagles. Obviously, he's going to the Super Bowl.
But that Eagles line coach is the best in the league. I mean, that dude should have a head coaching job. Serious. That dude, they call the university. I forget the guy's name. They call it that university. He's a heck of an offensive line coach. He can make anybody. Who's the big guy? Menua, the big 68. I'm trying to remember his name real quick. That played tackle for the Eagles. He was 5th round draft pick. He is now an All-Pro. I mean, he's probably going to Hall of Fame. I mean, that's how good this coach is. He's just unbelievable. Yeah, we talked about that Almighty Fitness. I don't know about moving up. I mean, who are we gonna move up?
The only person I would move up for would be Cam Ward, and if the Giants want to do that, and one might fall if the Titans get funny when they made an announcement last week that they're not going to let a generational player slip by, number 2 where they're picking. So, I don't know if that's a Hunter type of a signal that they might look at him at the 2nd overall pick. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny, when Gettleman was the Giants GM, and when he made Barkley the high draft pick at running back, he had said, I look for people, if we're drafting that high, who are going to wear a gold jacket. And Barkley, a couple more years like this, and you could probably start measuring him for one of those gold jackets.
I if the Giants, I don't think they move up. If anything, they move down.
Yeah, no,
right.
They way have too many holes. They need another safety. They need a defensive tackle to pair with Dexy. I mean, they could use another outside rusher, maybe later in the draft, so you accumulate picks that way. They certainly need another, at least a guard, a center that can maybe come in for some type of competition. I mean, they just need they could use another wide receiver on the other side of Neighbors. They certainly could use another cornerback. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on.
Well, that's what we're saying on Mighty Fitness, right? I mean, there's no quarterback that should be drafted in the 1st round. They're gonna do it. But really,
3 or 4 probably.
There's no talented quarterbacks this year. Shedeur Sanders is okay. He wouldn't have gone 1st round, first round last year. No way. He's not. He's okay. He's good. But is he a franchise quarterback? I don't know. So
Maybe.
you move back, you get a shot at another quarterback, whether it's Quentin Ewers or maybe Will Howard. Right. Or Ward. So I mean that's what this is why we're saying that. Yeah, I can tell he's a New York Giant fan. Appreciate having on with us today. So
absolutely.
Let's get to that trivia question, Bobby. I need you to answer this for me because I don't want to forget about it by the end of the show again.
We always do.
I know. That's why I'm making sure we do it now. So, I'm
going to say, okay, I'll let the music play.
Yes. In the history, all the way back to 1920, who is the quarterback that has the most touchdown passes?
I'm going to say it's a quarterback that we profiled a few weeks back, and I'm going to say it's Conley.
You were going to say that. Well, I kind of gave you a trick, a veer there. course, it's Eli Manning. Yeah, 366 touchdowns.
Every time I stay modern, you give me a question that goes back. Every time I go back, you give me a question that's modern.
Right.
Killing me, man.
Exactly.
I never think it.
Yes. Well, listen, Charlie Connolly did hold a lot of records for a long time. But, of course, Eli Manning with 366 touchdowns.
He was the first person I thought, too. And I said, no, I'm being tricked again here. So Eli is way too easy, way too obvious. So it can't be Manning. It's got to be somebody else.
Right. So, again, that's my job. My job is to stump you. That's part of the job. I sent you the job descriptions, Bobby, when we started the show. So.
I think I only got one question right, and that was the one I blurted out.
Yes, that was the one. So, talk a little bit. Me, Sonia, and James Martin, H-Train, and Jack have talked a little bit about minorities in sports, especially football. And after the show, because I knew it wasn't as bad as they were saying. You know, they were saying that there's still not enough. The black quarterback is still kind of looked at in a bad way. Blah blah blah. I looked it up, and in 1922, there was like, I don't know, 20% quarterbacks. But in 2022. In 2024, 47% of the quarterbacks were minorities. So it's 50-50 almost right now. And as it keeps going, as we see down in college, there are a lot of minority quarterbacks. And the trend will continue. I think it's always going to be the best player. I think everybody thinks that. What I do have not a problem with, but what does make me ponder, that's a good word, makes me ponder a little bit, is why the Giants or the Cowboys have never hired a black coach in their history. We're talking, we're going back to the 20s with the Giants, back to the 60s with the Cowboys. Never even hired a black quarterback. Not even tried it. And I know the Rooney Rule is supposed to help. I think that's kind of insulting to the black coaches. But have you ever thought about that, Bobby?
You know, it's funny. I had thought about the Giants quarterback position over the last few years up until last year. Because if you look at the Giants' history at quarterback, and I'm going to give you a name that, you know, we should have signed Moon when we had a chance many, many years ago. I had to live with Dave Brown, you know, as my quarterback. And I had to live, you know, with a bunch of other players who can't hold his, well, I won't say that word, but they couldn't carry his luggage. They were so bad.
Right.
And you know, so George Young, and I don't know why George wouldn't have did that, but he didn't do that. And I always wondered why. So I always looked at the Giants quarterback position as opposed to the coaching. But yeah, I mean, I don't know why the Giants have never done that. We've had some really good assistant coaches who went on, African American coaches who had gone on, and some became head coaches for other teams. Romeo Cornell comes to mind from the Bill Parcells tree. He went to Cleveland eventually.
Pepper Johnson eventually became
Pepper Johnson. Coach. So I mean, there was I don't. That's a you know, I don't know if it's just the timing, which coaching, hiring a coach or drafting a player, a lot of it's timing and what's available at the time when you're looking for that person. So I don't know if that's part of it. I don't know. It might be, it might not be, but you like look at things like that. And like I said, I always wondered about the quarterback more so than the coach itself. But yeah, you make a good point, and it's you know, I don't think it's something that the Giants are doing intentionally, or I can't speak for I don't know if the Cowboys are doing intentionally. I wouldn't think so. But
yes, I do this to everybody because I want to throw things at them and get their honest opinion right away. Because if you give them a chance to think about it, or you know, a lot of people like to prep for the show. I do with certain shows. Big football show, I have to. There's no doubt. But I don't send the prep out to the hosts. I don't do that.
Okay.
I want the unfiltered. All of a sudden out of nowhere comes this, and it takes us down a different road. Sometimes
I think it's a great question. Certainly, I don't know the right answer, but I think timing. There's so many things in life. I don't care what you do in life, how you do things, what a job interview you might go do or might not go do, or you might choose to go or you don't want to go. We all make these decisions during our course of our careers. All of us do. So, and I think timing might be the biggest bugaboo for the Giants. What do you think?
The Giants did interview Brian Flores, right? After he left Miami. He had an interview with the Giants, an interview with Denver. Then Brian Flores turns around and tries to sue the Giants and the Broncos and the Dolphins, which I think has hurt him for getting a head coaching job, period, right now. I think that's what's stopping him from getting a head coaching job.
He's a hell of a defensive coordinator.
Oh, he is. But, as an owner, you tick him off, he's going to sue you. That's kind of crazy, right? So, I think he did that to himself. I kind of wish he didn't do that. I wish he just, you could make a big stink without suing, right? You can do that without suing anybody. And as I said, I think the Rooney Rule has to either be thrown out or I don't know how you enforce it. I really don't know. How can you tell an owner who to hire?
You can't. But, but interesting about the Giants, though, we did have an African-American GM.
Yes, we did.
So we had actually someone above the head coach who actually ran the football operation for the Giants.
That's true. Yeah, Reese was an African.
So there's that. So and again, maybe timing was perfect for Jerry. Jerry was in the system. He was in the Giants organization for years as a scout. He started out. He worked his way up the ladder. Yeah. The opening came. Jerry was hired, and then Jerry hired another African-American gentleman, I can't think of his name, to run the scouting department. And he ran the draft for Jerry. Yeah. So, the Giants have had, minorities in really positions of power that make the decisions that help the Giants hopefully get better in the future. So, the coach itself, I just think, when they were looking for a coach, whether it was Tom Coughlin, who was also a coach of the Giants in the past. So he had some type of connection to the Giants.
Sure.
And the Giants wanted to promote, and Jerry Reese promoted. I'm having a mind blank here. Who did Jerry Reese? He followed Tom Coughlin. Tom Coughlin's offensive coordinator.
Oh,
didn't make 2 years coach.
Oh, Jesus. I got a brain freeze right now, too. But yes. Here's
a funny thing. And I'll think of the coach's name in a minute. Going back a few drafts ago, and this was going back when Mahomes came out of college that year, the coach of the Giants, and Jerry Reese was the general manager of the Giants, and the other gentleman was running the draft for the Giants, both African-American gentlemen. The coach banging the table. We had better draft capital to trade up to get Mahomes, and Jerry Reese vetoed that trade.
Yeah.
And we would have had an African-American quarterback if they had listened to the coach during that draft period. So again, timing is everything in life. And Jerry Reese decided, I don't remember who we drafted or we did, but we would have had to trade up, which he never did. So he never traded up in the draft. And if he had traded up in the draft, Patrick Mahomes would be the Giants quarterback right now, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Okay. So let's get to the championship games, Bobby. Got like 15 minutes left. Philadelphia absolutely dominates the Washington Redskins / Commanders. Quarterback Jalen Hurts and Saquon both run for 3 touchdowns apiece. Saquon breaks on the first drive a 60-yard touchdown. It seems like he's been doing that all year. He gets the ball on the first drive, and he takes it to the house. Washington, too many turnovers, too many mistakes. Definitely a young team. But Bobby, sometimes you get one shot.
Yeah.
To make it to the championship, and you never get it again. I mean, the Redskins in the past have been to Super Bowls. But with a team, sometimes that's it. You had your chance. Yeah. And I think the Eagles are going to be a good team for a couple of years. I think the Commanders will be a decent team. Maybe they make the playoffs. Maybe they don't. So kind of a different thing. It's kind of a different swag here, right? Eagles play, experienced team. TJ Brown, good game. Hurts, good game. Saquon, good game. The defense played really well. Washington kind of turnovers, penalties, jumping over. I don't know what the hell that guy was thinking, jumping over the tush push 4 times.
They're calling him for offsides right now as we speak.
How dumb was that? If I'm the head coach, I would have yanked his ass after the second time. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, that was almost embarrassing. It was actually embarrassing.
Yeah, it was dumb. And there he is sticking his tongue out. I mean, it was just stupid. And to me, the coach showed that he had an undisciplined team with that. You gotta pull that guy out and sit him on the bench and say, listen, if you're gonna play like an idiot, you sit on the bench for the rest of the game. But anyway, the Eagles dominated the Commanders. And what do you think, Bobby? Does Washington make a comeback next year?
I think because if they have that quarterback, and that's the most important piece of any NFL team. And the coach was Ben McAdoo. I just remembered it.
Oh yes.
Rang the table to move up when they were shopping that pick, and they knew Kansas City was moving up, and we had more draft capital. We had a better draft pick, and we didn't move up. Anyways, enough of that. Going back to the game now, and we would have Patrick Mahomes right now, and who knows where we'd be. But anyway, we don't. The game itself, I felt as it went on, the Washington team got more frustrated. The Commanders became very frustrated. They had 3 turnovers in the game to that point. They were moving the ball pretty well. If they were their own worst enemy in that game. And I think when you see players do that, it's just frustration. They're sick of the tush push. They're sick of, probably not being able to make the plays when they wanted to. As far as them getting back to this game next year, I remember last year, the Detroit Lions coach Campbell said after the game, you fight so hard, you work so hard, starting with the offseason and the OTAs and the training camp and just to get back to this place. And it's hard to do. What makes me think that they may come back? They could come back is because they have the most important piece of the puzzle in place. Don't tell that to the Miami Dolphins because with Dan Marino there, they never made it back.
I was going to say.
So, but today's football is different than when Dan played. Today's football is the running quarterback, the throwing quarterback. He has those 2 things down in spades. He's very talented, very athletic. And, but we'll see. I mean, right now, as Bill Parcells said, I don't want to put him in the Hall of Fame yet. So after a season or 2. But if he can play at the level he played at this year, there's no telling why he can't go back there again. Next year or the year after, I don't know. But as long as he plays at that level and they surround him with pieces, I think his chances are pretty good to go back.
To me, it's sort of like CJ Stroud, right? You put a lot of tape out there. Defenses start figuring you out. And you either got to change your game up or get a little better. You can't play it the same. Now, he had a great rookie year, no doubt about it. But you can't play the same way. CJ Stroud, like I said, found that out. I mean, I know he had some injuries and whatnot, and I get that. But I don't know about it. I don't think they make the – be honest with you, I don't think they make the playoffs next year. I really don't. I think they have a good –
it could be a step back.
Yeah.
But, but if he can play like he played this year, and imagine if he builds on this. What if he comes back next year, he's even better?
It's possible.
I mean, he doesn't have to be a lot better, just a little better, just better than he was this year.
Definitely
and if
possible.
he's better than he was this year, that's pretty scary for in our division. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, I agree. Carolina was Lulu. That's the name of the guy that got the penalties on the.
That's the name of the guy. Yeah.
He
played for Carolina too.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah. So
he's offside still. He's jumping offside right now again.
He's offsides at home.
Yeah, exactly.
We got Buffalo at Kansas City. Buffalo, another heartbreaker. A lot. You're gonna have all these people. Oh, the refs helped them. Listen, the refs called the same amount of penalties against Buffalo as they did Kansas City, pretty evenly. I think Buffalo had a couple more penalties, if I'm not mistaken. Kansas City's offense, they move the ball around. It's hard to you can't key on one guy. I think Buffalo made a huge mistake. They didn't open up having Cook run. James Cook is a very underrated back when it comes to catching and running with the football. Had a great game, stretches out, gets that touchdown. I think Buffalo, as long as Josh Allen's there, their window stays open. You just keep building around Josh Allen with new people. But, man, they can't beat Kansas. Them in Baltimore, Bobby, they can't beat Kansas City in the postgame.
So speaking of the Buffalo Bills drove me crazy yesterday because for whatever reason they always put Josh through those quarterback sneaks to the left, and when they do, and they do it really more so than they do to the right. If you watch the game yesterday, every time he went left, Spagnuolo had a play to stop him from getting anywhere. When they went right, he got yardage.
Yeah.
He did a quarterback draw, he got yardage, he went right. He did a sneak, he got a first down right. Every time he went left, he got nothing. Because the Buffalo Bills all season long have gone left. Now I'm assuming, and I don't know about their offensive linemen, but I'm assuming that's the heart and soul of their offensive line. But every time they went right, they seemed there was an opening. So why they kept going left yesterday is beyond me. And I said, I was watching the game and said, don't go left. They go left, and they got stopped.
Spags knew that was coming. They knew it was coming. Yeah. They knew down the line it was coming. Patrick Mahomes, does it with his legs. Not only throwing the ball, he does it with his legs too. He's running over people in the end zone. I mean, talk about a guy who wants to win. The guy wants to win badly. They're going for the three-peat. We'll talk about it. Well, maybe a little bit next week. In the week after, we'll talk when the game's over. But 2 years ago, Philly lost by 3. Jalen Hurts has that critical fumble. And can the Kansas City Chiefs beat him again, Bob?
I'll probably hold who I'm going to pick for next week. But the OC is gone in Detroit. I think they're going to lose their defense coordinator too. I think. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So I think they're Campbell's got to do some rebuilding there. Maybe promote from within. I don't know. But can they win? I mean, they got to. I think the Eagles are a very good football team. I'm going to leave it at that right now. I think they're a really balanced football team. They play defense well. They run the ball well. They're almost, the Eagles to me are kind of a funny team. And when I say funny, I don't mean ha ha. They're a funny team because they're almost a throwback team. They'd rather run the ball first and then throw the ball second.
Yeah.
So even though they have such great skilled position players on the outside, they're a running football team. I mean, Barkley is, I don't know. He is. I mentioned earlier, a couple more years like this, you can measure him for a gold jacket. You can. But They're going to stop him. They have a great offensive line. They're physical. They're big. They're strong. Spags will have his work cut out for him stopping Barkley. And let's say that they do stop Barkley. Let's just play that. Say, okay, we've got a game plan. This is what we're going to do. We're going to put 8 in the box. We're going to 7 to 8 people up there. They still got great wide receivers.
Yes.
And Hurts can hurt you with his legs too if they're not open.
No doubt.
I mean, Spags has his he's gonna make his money next week. I didn't see the comment there.
The battle will be in the trenches. The Kansas City defense is no joke.
No, I agree.
Their offensive line inside, no joke. I mean, they can run the ball too. I think it's going to be a good game. You know, you brought up it reminds you of old school football. I was telling Jack this morning, it's like the Green Bay sweep. You know it's coming.
Right.
I mean, Saquon Barkley's a lot more dynamic than Jim Taylor was or Paul Warren.
Right.
But you know it's coming. Stop it. That's what Green Bay did. That's what the Eagles are doing right now.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
If Barkley gets to the second level, he doesn't have to get the third level. He gets to the second level, he can be gone.
Yeah.
You know, most running backs need to get at least past 2 levels to have a chance of taking it to the house. Not Saquon.
No. And again, you know, they're pulling the guards, they pull the centers sometimes, the tackle sometimes, straight out of the Green Bay Packer playbook. And very interesting. I love that kind of stuff. I watch that kind of stuff. That's the stuff that I love about football, no matter who's playing. So, folks, we're at the top of the hour. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for all the comments. Sonia, thanks for the share. That was very, very great of you. We will be back same time next week at 5 p.m. On Monday. Glove Fist is up at 7 p.m., and that's with Frank Latirzo and Jack Hirsch. Boxing show, but Frank Latirzo loves to talk about football. So be ready for football when he goes in there. He hates the Eagles, he says. He's from Philly. He says he hates the Eagles, but he's always betting on them. So I can't figure it out. But anyway.
And I'm going to talk so good about Charlotte. I'm going to do some studying. I want to make sure I promise you next week, I'm going to know more about them than I've ever known in my whole life. And I will have something great to say about them. I promise.
Okay. There you go. All right. I don't know why, but okay, that's fine. I mean, you know, anyway, folks, have a great night. We'll see you.
Because I want to make friends.
You want to make friends with Sonia? I don't know if you really want to do that. I don't know.
Well, I have to talk. I trashed her. I didn't really trash. I spoke poorly of her quarterback early.
Right.
But then I tried to rebound and talk nice about him, though.
He's still a bust. Come on.
No. I think he has a huge future in the NFL.
He's going to be a franchise quarterback.
Okay. He is a You look up the word franchise quarterback in the dictionary. His picture's there.
The picture will be.